I'm 71 years old, and I finally understand why time felt so fast. It wasn't fast. I just wasn't there for most of it. I used to say it all the time. Where did the years go? I said it at birthdays, at retirements, at my wife's 60th. I said it again when my grandson turned 10, and I realized I couldn't remember him being small.
For a long time, I thought time was the thief. Now I know it was me. I'm not telling you this because I want sympathy. At 71, sympathy doesn't do much. I'm telling you because when you get to this age, you start counting differently. Not how many years you've lived, how many you have left. And when the number is smaller than you expected, the mind gets honest. You look back without defending yourself. You stop explaining. You just look. When I was in my 20s, time felt endless. I don't mean that in a dramatic way, it just did. Weeks were long, summers stretched out. A year felt like something you could waste and still have plenty left. I got married at 26. Her name was Sima. She had this quiet way about her. Not shy, just steady. She would listen fully before speaking, which always made me feel like my words mattered more than they did. I loved her, I did, but even then I was already somewhere else. Not physically. I came home every night. I paid the bills. I showed up. But my mind was always leaning forward into the next thing. The next promotion, the next house, the next stage where everything would finally settle and I could relax. That's how I explained it to myself. Just a few more years of pushing, I'd say. Then we'll have time. Time for dinners that weren't rushed. Time for trips. Time to sit on the balcony and talk without checking the clock. In my 30s, I worked 6 days a week, sometimes 7. I told myself it was temporary. I told Sima the same thing. She never complained loudly. That almost made it worse. She would say things like, "The children asked if you'll be home for dinner." And I would say, "Not tonight. Big project." There was always a big project. I missed my daughter's school play because of a client meeting that I can't even remember now. I remember the suit I wore. I remember the traffic that day. I don't remember the meeting, but I remember coming home and seeing her costume hanging on the chair. She was asleep. I told myself I would make it up to her. I don't think I ever did. The strange thing is, nothing felt urgent in the moment. That's what confuses me now. If someone had asked me back then, "Are you neglecting your family?" I would have been offended. I was doing what a responsible man does. I was providing. I was building. I was securing the future. But time doesn't wait for security. It just keeps moving. In my 40s, we finally bought the bigger house, the one with the small garden Sima wanted. I remember standing in it the first evening, feeling proud. I thought, we made it. The children were already teenagers by then. They spent most of their time in their rooms. I didn't notice the shift happening. It was subtle. They needed me less, or maybe they stopped expecting me. Conversations at the dinner table became shorter. My son started answering in one-word replies. My daughter stopped telling me about her friends. I assumed it was normal teenage distance. Maybe it was, but I had helped create the distance long before that. I had trained them not to wait for me. Sima and I started talking less too. Not fighting, just less. We coordinated schedules, discussed expenses, planned family events like managers. Sometimes I would catch her looking at me in a quiet way, not angry, not sad, just far. I didn't ask what she was thinking. I was tired. There was always something more urgent than a feeling. In my 50s, my father died. He was 82. I remember standing at his funeral, watching people shake my hand, and thinking how strange it was that a whole life could end so quietly. He had worked hard, too. He had been strict, distant in his own way. I remember realizing, just briefly, that I didn't know him very well. And then I went back to work the next week. I told myself that's what he would have wanted. Time sped up after that, or at least it felt like it. Years blurred together. Promotions came. The children left home. One day the house was full of noise, and the next it was just me and Sima sitting across from each other in a space that suddenly felt too large. We tried to reconnect then. We went on a trip, just the two of us. I remember sitting at a small cafe, looking at her hands wrapped around a cup of tea. They looked older, veins more visible, skin thinner. I realized I didn't know her favorite color anymore. I didn't know what she thought about during the day. I knew her medication schedule, I knew the bank balance, I knew practical things, but I didn't know her. That realization didn't come with fireworks. It was quiet, almost polite, and I pushed it away. We still had time, I thought. That's the sentence that ran my life. We still have time. Then she got sick. It wasn't sudden, just fatigue at first, then appointments, then tests, then words from doctors that didn't fully land until later. I sat beside her hospital bed one afternoon while she was sleeping, machines humming softly, sunlight coming through a narrow window. Her face looked smaller somehow. I remember thinking about all the evenings I had chosen to stay late at the office instead of sitting beside her on the couch. All the conversations we postponed. All the ordinary days I treated like placeholders for some better future. And I felt something shift inside me. Not panic, clarity. The future I was working towards was already behind me. She passed away 6 months later. There's no dramatic way to say that. She was there, and then she wasn't. The house became unbearably quiet. People visited at first. The children stayed for a while. Then they returned to their lives, which is what they're supposed to do. I don't blame them, but when the door closes at night and you're alone with your thoughts, there's no distraction left. That's when time slows down again, painfully. Each evening stretches long, each memory replays in detail. I sit in the garden sometimes, the one she wanted. The plants are overgrown now. I don't tend to them the way she did. I try to remember the exact sound of her laugh. It's fading. That frightens me more than death. I thought success would feel solid at this age, like something I could lean on. It doesn't. Awards gather dust. Savings sit quietly in accounts. They don't sit across from you at dinner. They don't remember the story you've told a dozen times. I look at old photos and notice how often I'm standing slightly apart, smiling but distracted, as if my real life was happening somewhere else. I kept waiting for the moment when everything would align and I could finally be present. That moment never arrives. Life is the small things you think you can postpone. It's the school play, the slow Sunday breakfast, the long conversation when someone is trying, awkwardly, to tell you who they are becoming. You don't notice they stop trying. At 71, I understand that time didn't move fast. I moved through it carelessly. I treated days like coins I could afford to lose. Now I count them differently. There are things I can't fix. I can't go back to that school auditorium. I can't ask Sima what she was thinking all those evenings. I can't sit with my father and ask him about his childhood. Those doors are closed, not metaphorically, literally. That's the weight of age, not wrinkles, not aching knees. It's knowing which conversations will never happen. Sometimes my daughter calls. She's kind, busy. I can hear the rush in her voice. I try not to keep her long. I want to tell her everything I've realized, but I don't want to burden her either. So I say simple things. Take care of yourself. Don't work too hard. She laughs and says, I won't, Dad. I hope she means it. If you're listening to me now, I'm not going to tell you to change your life. I don't have that authority. I'm just telling you what it felt like on this end. It felt fast because I was always leaning toward tomorrow. It felt fast because I kept dividing my attention. It felt fast because I assumed the people I loved would always be there waiting for the better version of me. They were there, but time wasn't. You don't notice the erosion while it's happening. It's gentle, almost polite. A missed dinner here, a postponed trip there, a conversation cut short because you're tired. You think love can survive on intention alone. Sometimes it can't. I still have years left, I hope. Maybe 10, maybe 20 if I'm lucky. But they are different years. They are quieter, slower. There's no grand plan anymore. Just mornings, evenings, the sound of birds in the garden. I try to be present now, not in a dramatic way, just noticing the way the light